Seed Search is an augmented reality application designed to teach young students, grades 1st through 3rd, the concepts of seed dispersal, pollination, and plant life cycles through the medium of an interactive AR game. It was initially conceived as a means to teach course content in a more engaging augmented reality environment. We aimed to create a learning experience through the means of an educational game in an interactive world space. For this, we wanted to use a game-like flow in order to increase interest and engagement. We wanted to create an interactive environment that the student must engage with to progress. We wanted to have a narrative approach combined with technical functionality and educational content, in-game interactions and direct effect on elements in the island paths, and dynamic concept, vocabulary, and field note maps as supplemental learning materials during gameplay. Seed Search consists of 2 separate modes, the Learning Mode and Adventure Mode. Learning Mode is an interactive tutorial-like run-through that walks through the basic concepts of pollination, seed dispersal, and overall plant life cycle. Adventure Mode is the gameplay/analysis mode where the user takes on the role of an adventurer aiming to save the Flower Kingdom. It consists of 3 paths. Path 1 focuses on the wind method of dispersal, Path 2 focuses on the insect method of dispersal, and Path 3 focuses on the animal method of dispersal. Our application also features statistics tracking for each question and their subsequent data, and a student and teacher portal with pin-protected account creation for teachers, where all information is stored locally on the device.
Wait, listen! I think some wind is blowing. Maybe it will pick up these seeds. Quick, follow them! Come here, get closer. Our seed here needs to remember how to become a flower.
My name is Jarne Sennesael, and I was the lead 3D modeler for Seed Search. My contributions can be split up into 4 different parts, consisting of ideation, 3D modeling, texturing, and animation. For ideation, I worked closely with Jamey, our project lead. She would tell me what needed to be created, and I would start with roughly sketching out concepts and discussing which direction we liked best. After that, I would start prototyping simple 3D layouts to see if they matched what we derived from the sketches. This was the process for how the Flower Kingdom castle started. For the paths, Jamey sketched out a path layout, which I would use directly as a reference to 3D model. For 3D modeling, I used Maya. I slightly prefer Maya's building tools and shortcuts over Blender's. I also stuck with Maya to complete the UVs. One neat tool I learned was the Transfer Attributes tool. If I created duplicate objects before finishing the UVs, I could finish the UVs of one object and then transfer the UV to the rest using this tool. As for texturing, I actually switched to Blender. I found that Blender has way better texturing tools than Maya, so I exported my models and UVs from Maya, made basic color blocks on the UVs in Photoshop, and then imported them into Blender. In Blender, there's a stencil mode that allows you to import an image, have a 2D stencil of that image over top your model, and then to paint the stencil directly onto the model. You can also paint the stencil onto the UVs directly, allowing more precise control. I used this mode to blend the existing color block style and a more realistic style, using photorealistic textures and photographs as the stencils. And lastly, for animation, I switched back to Maya, preferring Maya's rigging system over Blender's. I ran into a few problems here, so I managed to learn quite a few things. First off, the animations weren't exporting properly, so I learned about baking animations. Baked animations apply keyframes in between the set keyframes, making every single frame of every single joint a set keyframe. This allows the system to not have to interpolate where the joints will be in between the set keyframes. Secondly, I learned more about skin weights, and a useful tool to help paint skin weights. Skin weights attach themselves to individual vertices, not an arbitrary location painted over top the faces, like I originally thought. Going to Windows, General Editors, Component Editor, and then going under the Smooth Skin tab opens up the Component Editor. This allows you to shift what has control over individual vertices. I liked using this tool more than painting skin weights directly on top of the model, as I could fully understand what had influence over the selected vertex.
I primarily designed the 2D elements and UI, along with much of the foundational concepting for the app and the seed fairy. We aimed on keeping the aesthetics simple, yet diverse and colorful, with colors being a little bit muted and soft and earthy tones. We wanted the entire design of the app to be gender neutral, so the seed fairy was designed with that in mind, as was the voice acting that I did for it. I also created the script, which aimed to take the scientific content and arrange it in a way that would be engaging and fun for active learners.
These ants seem like they're a little confused. Tap on this ant to get his attention. Then, direct him to the pile of seeds. The process of a seed growing into a plant is known as germination. That's right. Seed dispersal is the process of moving seeds from one place to another. Ants are one type of insect that disperse seeds. They collect them for food, and along their journey, drop some seeds on the way.
My name is Troy, and I'm a senior student at Boise State University. In this project, I was a full stack developer using Unity to make the entire application. I have implemented a login system for security and collect data purposes. I create a local saving manager to save user progression and a sound manager to trigger dynamic narration throughout the entire application. I program a UI interaction, follow like a given script by the client, also a bit of advice from Jamey for user friendlies. After that, I made a local storage system to store all the data that we will use, like definition and lesson that we will give in to the student. At last, I kind of deploy the application into iPad device using Xcode and a bit of like 3D modeling. For example, what is what the end and a bit of all the seed that you may see in the scene.
Hi, my name's John, and I did programming for Seed Search. So, a couple of things I did all the setups for all the levels, so all the positionings and all of that. I did the level flow, I would like to call it. So, I basically did all the setups of where the fairy was going to be at any given point and all of the tasks that you would have to do and all the programming with those tasks. So, for example, in path 1, I did the whole setup of where you would tap the dandelion and you'd have the dandelion seed, tap anywhere, and the dandelion seed moves to that. Stuff like that I did for paths 1, 2, and 3. And then I did repair work for the tutorial in the learning mode. So I did those. I also did programming for an MMR rating on times for hints. So we had a dynamic system that would project when a student would need a hint based on their previous answers and how long it took them to answer and get the correct answer. I also did some 3D modeling, and so I did the trees, I did bucket. I also did some texturing for other models as well, and I did the renderings of the islands with grass on them. So I didn't do the islands, but I actually was able to put grass on them through a render particle system.